view in this is even worse than in the Spitfire when you're looking directly forward.
This is the Kittyhawk.
The P40, the Kittyhawk to the British and Commonwealth forces. P40, P for pursuit for the US Army Air Corps. It was actually designed as an aeroplane to utilise the Allison V12 engine. Same as the Spitfire has a V12, it's a 27 litre. V1650 is the designation for the Merlin in US service, 1650 cubic inches in a V block. This is a V1710. The difference between the two basically is the design philosophy for the engine. It was designed to be a low to medium altitude engine, whereas the Spitfire engine was designed for good performance at a great range of heights. The first P40 was actually the 10th production P36 fighter, and that was built by Curtiss. It had a radial engine, had the same engine in it as the Boomerang, the 1830 radial, and they decided we'll use this new Allison V12, we'll stick that on the front, and it was virtually the same aeroplane from the engine back. It had the same weird undercarriage retraction where the wheels turn at 90 degrees and then fold backwards into the wing. Most conventional aeroplanes at the time, they had the undercarriage that folds inwards. That caused a little bit of a problem when landing the aircraft in the early days. Early models, they basically split up into the B model, the E model, the F and the N. They were the four classic production variants. Nice derry turn there. Had to roll an aeroplane and turn it from one direction to the other. So the P40 became the principal fighter aircraft of the US Army Air Corps. There was no US Air Force at that time, and this is pre the introduction of America into World War II, because that was well after World War II commenced in Europe. The French had ordered P40s, but they were not able to take up their deliveries, and the British took them over because obviously France had fallen. The early models were known actually as the Tomahawk. They had a reduction case in the front of the engine to take the power up to the propeller, which was a lot longer than this particular model, and it gave the aeroplane a very much sleeker appearance. The P36 was air-cooled. Where do we put the coolant for this liquid-cooled engine? They started off with the coolant behind and underneath the cockpit, then moved it further forward, and the eventual location was, as you see it here, right behind the propeller. coolant radiators and the oil coolers are all massed in that area. The E model was a short next iteration, the B model had this long engine. It was a little bit less powered. Then they had the E model, which had a higher powered Allison. The F and the L models had a Rolls-Royce Merlin in them. Then they extended the fuselage by about 18 inches in the end model, which was the N. Some of the ends were produced with a slightly shorter fuselage. They were involved in operations in every theatre of the Second World War. They were operated by the Russians against the Germans on the steppes. They were operated against the Finns, against the Japanese up in the Aleutian Islands, in North Africa, the Pacific, China, Burma, India theatre as well. The RAAF operated principally the E model and the N model. Now, when the war broke out in the Pacific, we were looking towards America to provide us with fighters. That didn't happen initially, and we built the Boomerang. But at the outset of the war in the Pacific, the Japanese struck several locations at the same time. The 49th Fighter Group actually came back down into Darwin and operated out of there in the defence of Darwin. That was United States Army Air Corps Fighter Squadron. P40 is a very, very rugged, very reliable aircraft, used as both a fighter, but principally when it was overtaken by more higher performance aeroplanes like the P47 and later the Mustang, it found its niche in air-to-ground work as a fighter bomber. Different from many aeroplanes of the period because you normally have two main members in each wing. The front spar, which is the biggest one, takes most of the load, and a rear auxiliary spar. This aeroplane actually has 5 spars and it's a very solid wing, fitted with 650 caliber machine guns, and it could actually carry up to 2,000 pounds of bombs. The central position carried a drop tank. Some of them carried 2 bombs in each of those 3 positions on the outer wing under the fuselage. They never carried rockets. It was one of the things that they were not equipped with. But the Russians really loved operating these aeroplanes. They seemed to find a home for a lot of unloved American aeroplanes as well. They operated the P40. They used the Hurricane to great advantage, as well as the P39 Aerocobra and the P63 King Cobra. This aircraft made its first public appearance at the Wanaka Air Display, and it was a real welcome sight because a lot of us from the museum, we go over every 2 years to see what's happening there, and we were able to see this airplane. We didn't meet Al at the time, we weren't introduced to him, but he's subsequently become a great friend of the museum, and this aircraft comes here very often, operates around various air shows on the East Coast.